All right, welcome back to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast with Justin and Brandon. We have kicked off another triple header at the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Max Verstappen somehow keeps his championship hopes alive. Lando Norris beats Oscar Piastri for the first time in what seems like 3 months. What a way to kick off a triple header. Brandon, how you feeling?
It was an amazing race. I think if it is the last one that Emila has for a while, which I so hope it's not, that it was quite the race to end on. So
Yeah, I think Imola has been an incredible track since it returned to the calendar. We saw a Danny Rick podium in 2020, another incident between Max and Lewis in 2021. It has been a good track. It's beautiful. Every shot I see on television, they love throwing in a good Imola aerial shot and showing all the trees. It looks beautiful. I understand why they're going to replace it. It starts with M and ends in Unny. But I hope that it somehow gets to stay on the schedule or returns very soon. Let's jump right into our recap because a lot happened. We're already recording a day late, so we got to give the people what they want. What is your one sentence rundown from the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix?
my one sentence runs down is that Oscar Piastri has learned a lesson. He admitted after the race in that amazing move by Max, he broke a little bit early. I don't know if he was just thought he had the lead sealed up. Forgot that Max Verstappen was the one behind him. I don't know, but yeah, I think Oscar learned a lesson. I mean, what a move by Max, but Oscar also didn't put up much of a defense. I think he was caught napping a little bit. So tough weekend for Oscar.
In fairness to Oscar Piastri, he did the work off the start. He had
He did.
the
He
better
did.
launch than Max. I mean, Max had even a worse launch than George Russell. Like, Max was not in P2 when he initiated that move. So if you're Oscar Piastri, your mirrors are filled with George Russell right behind you, and you think you've got it, locked up. So you take it a little bit conservative, make sure you don't give George any space on the inside by going too deep. And then Max Verstappen sends it around the outside. Like, just because Oscar Piastri broke early, I don't want to take anything away from that move by Max Verstappen because that was an incredible overtake. And he technically overtook two cars in one corner to end up in the lead, then around the outside. That was an incredible move, but I think you're absolutely right. I think there's no way that Oscar Piastri ever again in his Formula One career decides to take it a little bit easy when Max Verstappen is anywhere near him on track.
Yeah, and that's what Max does is he makes other drivers better because he's better than them. So, it's just how it goes.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things that makes you realize how good Max is, like you just said, of like there are drivers who realize that they have to race Max Verstappen differently than they do everyone else just because of how good Max is, the champion's mindset that he has. I mean, you even saw it in 2021, like at the beginning of the year, Lewis Hamilton would just dive out of the way for Max Verstappen, and then at the end, he's like, I can't keep doing that or I'm going to lose the championship. And so just the mindset that Max Verstappen has when he is behind the wheel of a Formula One car changes how anyone drives around him when it comes to competing for a championship.
Yeah, it's incredible to watch. He is our generational talent of this era. So I hope we get to see him win many more.
Yeah, I can't believe we're sitting here talking about Max Verstappen still being in this championship fight. It's absolutely insane, which flows right into my one sentence rundown, which is that Max Verstappen never goes away. We have been talking, especially in recent weeks, that Max is out of the championship. Oscar is the clear championship favorite. McLaren are going to run away with this. Red Bull's looking kind of weak on some tracks. And then out of nowhere, they did have an upgrade this weekend. Max doesn't get pole, but he says it's the best feeling he's had in the car all year. And then I don't think his win was ever really in doubt on Sunday. He got that lead on lap one, and part of me was like, Oscar's going to catch him back and pass him. That's just how it goes. The race pace of the McLaren's going to be better, and that is what it is. And then Max had some pretty surprising race pace. We even texted about it of like, wow, I can't believe Max is staying in front and managing this race as easy as it was. Oscar goes early to try and get an undercut. And even then, it didn't really feel like Max was under pressure from that. It felt like he could safely extend the stint. Some strategy things happened to make it easy for Max on that end. But the win never really felt in doubt. And I feel like Max Verstappen is still firmly putting his name into this championship fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were talking about, these past few weeks, Max is kind of out of the championship fight, Oscar versus Lando, that kind of thing. But I feel like we always threw the caveat in there of like, you can never count out Max Verstappen. And I mean, he's showing us why, we have that caveat in there because I mean, he's an incredible driver, and I think Max could absolutely still win this championship, especially if the race pace of the Red Bull gets any better at all. I mean, after like 7 or 8 laps, and just kind of watching Oscar kind of get close, and then he fell back a little bit, and then not really able to like make any meaningful dents in the lead that Max had. I was like, yeah, I think Max is gonna probably win this race. So yeah.
Yeah, for the first time this year, it felt like Max was managing a race, managing a lead. Every other race we've seen, it seems like Max Verstappen, every single lap, is just absolutely reining the neck of that Red Bull and getting as much pace as he could. This week was the first time I felt like we saw Max Verstappen at ease in that car, extending the tire life, controlling the gap. It felt like Max Verstappen of old, Red Bull of old. So things are moving in the right direction for Red Bull. Certainly cannot count out Max Verstappen. And that means it's time for our weekly championship recap. Oscar Piastri now leads Lando Norris by 13 points. Going into Sunday, it looked like Oscar was going to extend his lead, has some strategy things not go his way, and ends up losing some points in his lead. And so now he's only 13 points ahead of his teammate. Max Verstappen is 22 points off the championship lead. He's now got it back to under a race win. Max seems more at ease in that Red Bull. Those upgrades are looking good. Lando beats Oscar for the first time in 4 races, which is something that Lando really needed for his confidence, I would assume. So, as we always ask, right now, who has the momentum in the championship to you?
To me, I still think it's Oscar. I think Oscar, we're going to a track where Oscar's performed well out in the past. Obviously, Max Verstappen has performed well in Monaco as well. So I think don't without getting too much into the Monaco prediction side of things, I think we're going to see Oscar and Max kind of fighting it out in Monaco. But I still think it's Oscar. He still has it's a pretty sizable lead, 22 points in the championship. So if unless there's like a major swing, like a DNF from Oscar, I still think he has the momentum. Obviously, it's better to be leading than it is to be trailing in any championship situation. So,
Well, I mean, you say that he's got a lead by 22 points, so you're just counting out Lando Norris completely in that equation. I mean, if Lando was to win next week and Oscar finishes P2, Lando is cutting that lead by more than 50%. Like, Lando Norris is far from out of this championship fight. Like, he just beat Oscar Piastri. We can't count him out just because he's been slightly overshadowed by his teammate.
yeah, I mean, that's true. That's very true. Maybe I wasn't giving Lando the credit he deserves, but I was just kind of thinking of it. Max is back in the championship. And if you're gonna, force me to pick which driver out of the top 3 is a larger threat to Oscar Piastri's lead, I'm still probably going to pick Max Verstappen. So even though Lando's closer.
That's fair. That's fair. And it truly does feel that there has been a massive shift from the beginning of the year where Lando Norris was the clear favorite. And now there has been a shift, not only within the Formula One standings and the Formula One world, it feels like there has been a shift in McLaren where Oscar feels like the driver who is at the head of that team at the moment as well. So I see why you can say that for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, McLaren has 2 number 1 drivers. We cannot forget. So.
Yeah, that's what Zach Brown says. They're gonna have their 2 number 1 drivers all the way to 5th championship for Max Verstappen. That's what's gonna happen if they don't figure it out there. That's what we learned from 2024. That's for sure. Let's talk about another team who hasn't really figured things out recently. What the heck is going on at Ferrari? Saturday looked horrible. I thought my backmarker prediction for Lewis Hamilton was an absolute lock after they both got knocked out in Q2. And then Sunday, they come out of nowhere, have incredible race pace. Lewis Hamilton finishes P4, Charles Leclerc P6 after some, questionable calls from his team to make him give that position back to Alex Albon. But they're just such a confusing team right now. They went from competing for the Constructors' Championship last year, taking it all the way down to the last Grand Prix, to pretty much being nowhere. They're not fighting for wins. They've got, I think, 1 podium on the season with Charles Leclerc, not counting Lewis Hamilton's sprint win. They've got to turn the season around soon. They've got upgrades coming in Spain. Do you think the season's just a write-off for Ferrari, or can they turn the season around?
I mean, I love to be delusional, so I want to say yes. I think that it can still turn the season around. I mean, this was about the time. Well, maybe it was a little earlier last year, but I mean, they performed really well in Monaco last year. Obviously, Charles won the race, so I think there's definitely still time, and we really saw a lot more consistency in like the back half of the season from Ferrari last year. So I think it's still possible. I think they're definitely out of the constructors' fight at this point, though. It's just too far gone with Lando and Oscar performing so well in this early half. But yeah, I mean, I think Charles and Lewis are still one of the best driver pairings on the grid right now. So it'd be foolish to count them out. And I still think Fred is a great leader for Ferrari. So
Yeah, I hope they don't make any rash decisions and try and get rid of Fred. But you say that they're out of the constructors championship fight, and I fully agree. I obviously they're not as far out as Red Bull is, but I think it's gonna be McLaren. They've probably locked that up even at this point in the season. I feel pretty confident in saying that. So if they're out of the constructors championship fight, like, should they just bin off the year and say, all right, let's move on to 2026. Let's get that locked in. And so maybe we don't see that second half of the season resurgence from Ferrari.
I mean, it's certainly possible. I think whenever you go into a regulation change, you're probably going to see more teams who aren't competing up at the front do that. So Ferrari may make that decision at some point, but also I think there's a lot of value in, especially with this being Lewis's first season, putting that effort into 2025, getting him integrated into the team. You know, obviously, the more success that he can have, the more success that Charles can have, that's going to keep them both motivated and hungry for more at Ferrari. So if Fred walked into a meeting with him tomorrow and was like, "Sorry guys, I think we're writing off the rest of the season and we're going to put it all in on 2026." I mean, there's some hope there, but having a couple race wins towards the end of the season would probably provide more hope to them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably comes down to how these first few rounds of upgrades go. Like, if they attempt some upgrades and it's like the first upgrades they had last year and they're absolutely horrible, I don't necessarily know if they put as much effort into a rebound like they did last year. But if these upgrades get them moving into the right direction and they're consistently fighting for podiums, maybe even a couple wins, yeah, then they probably push the 2025 development. Obviously, we will see every team at some point this year probably stopped development earlier than they would have in a prior year because of the regulation change. But I think these upcoming first rounds of development are especially important for how Ferrari decides to play the rest of their year.
Yeah, I totally agree. We'll have to see if Charles can get a back-to-back win next week. We'll see.
Yeah, we will certainly see. I wouldn't be mad about that at all. Let's talk about a team who are somehow fighting with Ferrari this season, Williams Racing. What a year they have been having. So the question has to be at this point, after Alex Albon almost finishes P4, can Williams get a podium this season? Another impressive qualifying performance on Saturday. Alex Albon gets that P5, like I just said. Carlos Sainz would have been right up there with him, if not ahead of him, had he not had some unlucky strategy with the timing of the VSC. So, in your humble opinion, will Williams get a podium this year?
I think it's possible. I think that they're still a step behind Ferrari, step behind Mercedes, Red Bull, and McLaren, obviously. But if you have a race where some crazy stuff happens, I mean, and they qualify up there and they're running up in the top five, top seven, I think it's certainly possible. Alex and Carlos are both great drivers who have the potential to do that. And again, I think one of the stronger driver lineups that is on the grid this year. So I think it's entirely possible. I don't know that they would do it on raw pace, but yes, possible.
Yeah, shout out Alex Albon for having a better year than any of us imagined. I think we all thought that he was going to get absolutely dog walked by Carlos Sainz, and he has been having an incredible season. Not to take anything away from Carlos, I think Carlos has had like 3 weekends this season where he's had bad luck that has prevented him from scoring the points that he deserves on a Sunday. So hopefully that turns around for him. I think it would be stupid to say that Williams couldn't get a podium. I don't think any of us expected Alpine to pull out a double podium to end off last season. So to say that there's no chance that Williams would get a podium would be pretty dumb. I mean, I don't want to get too crazy, but even this weekend we're about to see at Monaco, you say they're a step behind Ferrari, and I think they are in race pace, but on Saturdays, I don't know if they're behind Ferrari. I think their qualifying one lap pace is really impressive. So you see another incredible qualifying performance. We saw Carlos Sainz go P1 in Q2 and then get upset that he left time on the table in Q3, but he qualified P6. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be crazy if he qualified up towards the front in Monaco, and we know that overtaking is hard. So, I'm not predicting that. And in our next episode, you still won't hear me predict that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Williams' best performance of the year is still yet to come, maybe even this next weekend.
Yeah. I mean, from what it feels like watching them, I still feel like their best performance is yet to come because I feel like they've been taking small steps forward every single weekend. And now we're here where we're talking about them like looking like they have the consistent pace to qualify in Q3 in the top 5, in the top 7, stuff like that. So I still absolutely think that their best is yet to come for 2025.
Yeah, and I still think, you say they're getting better every single weekend, and obviously not all of that is coming from upgrades, and we know that they're gonna shut down development soon on that car. It almost makes me wish that we didn't have this regulation change coming up. But I also think they're experiencing some of what McLaren experienced last year. Like they haven't been in this position to consistently qualify in Q3 since like 2014. So like there are mechanics on that team, there are strategists on that team, people on the pit wall who have never experienced this before. Alex Albon hasn't experienced this since 2020, so as a team, they're still learning how to execute strategies when you're up there fighting for the top 5, how to, fully execute a Q3 run plan and qualifying. And so I think this is incredible experience for the team, not just development wise and pace wise, but also for the people in the team to experience what it's like to be this competitive before they go into the new regulations.
Yeah, and I think that's where James Vowles is probably bringing a lot of leadership and value to the team. Whereas, not to dog on Zach Brown at all, but when McLaren was going through this, they didn't have a lot of people who had direct experience with that. But James Vowles came from Mercedes from, when they were winning literally hundreds of races. James was there. He knew how to operate in a team with that much success. And so I think he's probably bringing a lot of experience, brought a lot of leadership to Williams in this time while they kind of go through these growing pains.
Yeah, and I think Carlos Sainz fits that same thing coming from a
Yeah.
race-winning team and having won races in Ferrari. And Alex Albon has that Red Bull background as well, but he also has, being embedded in the team for half a decade now. And so I think, man, that is an incredible lineup. I'm so excited to see what they do for the rest of the year and into next year, because if this is them not putting full efforts into a season, I cannot wait to see what the future holds for Williams. We made some predictions this weekend before the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. You are currently leading 18-16, but I'm coming for that lead. I'm coming for it. Podium push of the weekend. I said Yuki Tsunoda, which was incorrect. He decided to bin it in Q1. A very scary accident. Glad that he is okay, obviously. But no, I mean, he went from P20 to P10 and scored a point, which is good, but he had to start in the pit lane in the first place. So no, I don't think he gets podium push of the weekend for me.
And I put Charles Leclerc, which I think, I don't know, kind of iffy, but I err on the side of no because it was just a really poor qualifying performance from Ferrari, from Charles. And had they been able to qualify higher up, I think there's definitely more on the table with the race pace they had on Sunday. But because of that qualifying, I don't think that he can get it. So
Yeah, and he got beat by his teammate and finished behind a Williams. So yeah, we're not getting that for sure. Back mark of the weekend, I said Lewis Hamilton, which I thought was a lock after Saturday. I said, Justin, this was a great prediction. You crushed it. And then somehow, some way, he finishes P4, which is nuts. That's Lewis Hamilton of the past couple years. Hasn't had the qualifying pace, but then somehow pulls it out on Sunday. So no point for me on that one.
and I said Franco Colapinto, which I want to argue this because I think he had a horrible weekend. His highest finish in any session was P13 in FP2. He crashed out in Q1 in qualifying.
He made it to Q2. He made it to Q2. He was in
He did
Q2.
make it to Q2, but he couldn't participate because he had crashed,
That's true.
and then he finished P16 in the race. So I think that's a point for me, or at least half a point. So
Yeah, but it was his first weekend back in Formula One. Like, was it an absolutely horrible weekend from Franco?
I mean, compared to his other performances, I mean, his first weekend last year was much better than this.
That's
So
true. That's true. How would you compare it to a Jack Doohan weekend?
pretty comparable, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of crashing going on in that second seat.
That's
So
true. That's true. Maybe the second seed just has a huge magnet in it that attracts it to the barriers. Here's what I'll do for you because I put no on the sheet. You're gonna argue it. If there is one person that comments on this video that says you deserve a point, you can have it. I won't argue at all. One
all right,
comment. That's
that's
all you
fair.
need. Is that fair?
We need. That's totally fair.
All
Just need
right.
somebody to come through, give me that point. We'll see what happens.
Sounds perfect to me. Poll, I said Lando Norris, which was incorrect.
And I also said Lando Norris, which was incorrect.
Yeah, at least we both didn't get a point there. Misery loves company. P3, I said Kimi Antonelli. That could not have been any more incorrect. Unfortunately, he got eliminated in Q2 and then DNF'd. So not how he would like to his first home race to go, and not how I would have liked it to go either, because that's not a point for me.
Yeah, and I put George Russell, which George had an okay race, but not even close to the podium. So
Wait, he was looking like he could be on for it at the beginning of the race, and then, tires kind of faded, and then he was unlucky at the VSC. So, yeah, unfortunately, no for there. P2, I said Lando Norris, which was correct.
P2, I said Oscar Piastri, which was incorrect.
And in P1, I said Oscar Piastri, which was incorrect.
And I said Lando Norris, which was incorrect. So not a good podium for me, but you
Yeah,
got one.
we feel like we should get a point because after we predicted the top two to be McLaren, we said in our prediction podcast, "Oh, we've just guaranteed a Max Verstappen win," because we put
We
all
did
four
say it.
of our top two predictions as papaya. So, I feel like we deserve an extra point. I won't take it, but I feel like we should. One pushing prediction, I said that at least one of the rookies would have an incident over the course of the weekend. That could not have been more correct. I think like Ollie Behrman was the only one who didn't have an incident at some point over the weekend. And that was good from FP1 when Gabriel Bortoleto put it in the wall. And then obviously had Franco Colapinto. So just a rough weekend overall for the rookies. So that is a point for me.
Yep. And I said at least one VSC and a full safety car during the race, which did happen. So great prediction for me.
Yeah, absolutely insane that you had two engine failures during the race. One of them gets a VSC, the other one gets a full safety car. I cannot believe that. And
I
I
was so
saw
pumped.
the second one happen, and I was like, please be a VSC, please be a VSC. And then it was the full safety car. I was like, dang it, I cannot believe Brandon got a point for this. That was absolutely insane. Props to you. Both of us getting pushing prediction points. So I guess we do know wheel after all. The fans at Lenny13_7, both Ferraris finished inside the top 5. That was so close.
So
But
close.
incorrect. At Daniel_P19, Franco Colapinto scores points on re-debut. That could not have been further from the truth. Man, with that sentence, I really feel like I should give you the point, but I'll think about it. And at Formula Fan at 33, rain in at least one session during the weekend. There were rumors of sprinkles. I don't think it was enough to give it that point either. So unfortunately, the fans go 0 for 3. You are leading 19-18 with an asterisk by it because it could be 20-18. But for the moment, I have closed the lead. You only lead by 1 point after this weekend.
Yeah, we've got a championship battle on our hands as well. It's exciting times over here at the Podium Pushers.
Call me Max Verstappen the way I'm creeping back into this championship fight. That is all we have got for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. As always, thank you for watching or listening. Before we get out of here, Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts?
Parting podium thoughts is we only need one comment. Let's do it, guys. Just one comment saying I deserve the point. That's all it takes. So let me know.
One comment on any platform and Brandon can have it. Anyone. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, anything. Brandon can have this point. So make sure you subscribe, like, follow, do all the things to help Brandon get his last point. We will be back later in the week to predict the Monaco Grand Prix. But until then, have a great day and God bless.
See ya.